Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, November 29th? Yeah, 29th, 2022. As you can see, it's nearly Christmas. We don't have our tree up yet, but this is a little bit meta in my brain right now because on my television over there is the Townsend's, John J. Townsend and Sons, Townsend 2 millionth subscriber live stream is happening on my TV right now. So the reason I'm doing this video is because I want to talk about a few of my favorite YouTube channels. Now YouTube, I'll take my glasses off because the reflection on them is quite strange on the camera. So when I decided I was going to make a bunch of videos, I thought, well, I should definitely do one about my favorite YouTube channels. Before I list them, though, I think it's also important to talk about what YouTube means to me personally. Now, nowadays, YouTube is a corporate entity of Google, but I am 38, so 20 years ago, when the internet was really coming alive with multimedia, a little bit longer back than that, somebody will almost inevitably say, I remember when, ... 20 years ago is when video became a big deal on the internet. And you had a lot of hosting sites that were competing to share videos, and people were, it was nuts. I mean, there were just all kinds of crazy videos, and me and my friends coming right out of high school at that time, we were we'd watch YouTube videos, GIFs, however you want to say it, doesn't matter to me. I say GIFs. Things like, if you know what this is, you are at least as old as me. YTMND.com, you'rethemannowdog.com. It was a GIF hosting site that began with a little GIF created from Sean Connery, a line he said in Finding Forrester, where he said, "You're the man now, dog," and somebody turned that into a GIF. That's all it was, over and over again. We know about a lot of songs made nowadays from people talking, in various lines of movies or newscasts or whatever. Back then, that was pretty new, and people made songs out of that, all kinds of funny things. But YTMND.com was a GIF hosting site, and then YouTube happened, and it was all about this kind of thing. People filming themselves, and it led to all sorts of cultural phenomena. And here we are, officially, I think, like 16 years since YouTube launched, but I lose track of when YouTube actually happened, because even before that, we were watching videos on the internet, a lot of different sites. But in the last 15 years, YouTube has become a media juggernaut that hosts all kinds of stuff, from live streams to legitimate academic forums, and that's worth reflecting upon as a culture, that we have this mass media forum that anyone can use, including this guy who's sitting at home right now just talking into a phone, as I watch a channel founded by people who make clothes from the 18th century. That's pretty amazing. Townsend and Son is the only YouTube channel that I support financially, and the reason being, their work is important. It's historic work. It's work about history, and it's also work that brings people together. I'm not the most community-oriented guy. I'm pretty introverted for the most part. My wife is very similar. We try to be engaged and involved in our community, but we're really introverts. We love to be in our space that we've made that is comfortable to us. But we do understand and value community to a great degree, and Townsend's creates that. The reason I got into Townsend's is I think probably 7-8 years ago the YouTube algorithm recommended a video of theirs. Either that or I was looking for recipes because I love to cook, especially at holidays, and Townsend's has a lot of amazing recipes. And then it turned out that Townsend is big in a community that I'm more of a lurker in, which is the 18th century American historical community. The video I made last week was about my long rifles, and I love that aspect of 18th century history. I'm really big into it. I don't do living history or anything like that, but I greatly appreciate the people that do. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, which was founded in 1733. That's when the actual people showed up. 1732, it was chartered, and then founded in 1733. And we grew up doing all sorts of things that harken back or remembered that history, such as the annual Georgia Day celebration and parade. We would all dress up as either colonists or Indians in this kind of silly caricature, but the point was to teach kids in Savannah that their city was old by American standards and had a history. And so I grew up with a lot of 18th century history, 19th century history. Savannah has been part of America since 1733, and a lot happened there. So I really love and appreciate early American history. So it is a little surreal right now watching that live stream of John Townsend talk about the 18th century while I'm also recording a video. But this video is mainly about my favorite YouTube channels. I have, as I've said in other videos, a wide range of interests. History is one of them. And when that came together in Townsend as both history and cooking, which is another one of my great loves, I've been a big fan of theirs. So I actually am a member of Townsend's Plus, which is their secondary independent website that's not part of YouTube. All their content's on there as well, and there's some exclusive content, and I'm willing to pay for that. I'm part of the generation that grew up cutting cable, and without an internet connection, I wouldn't have TV, and I'm fine with that. And YouTube is a big part of that. There are a lot of other channels on YouTube I'd like to support, and some of those are some of my favorites, which I'll just to go through a few of them. So my interests: history, cooking, guitar playing, crafting and woodworking, home improvement. Not so much woodworking, I say that. I'm not really big into woodworking. But home improvement, doing things yourself. I mean, some people come to that later in life. Some people end up gaining a love for doing things for yourself and working with your hands. I was raised with that a great deal. I mean, we didn't have a shop or anything where I was making stuff, but when there was something that needed fixing, we did it ourselves, unless it was something too technical not to do yourself. Grew up, looking under the hoods of cars and looking at mechanical devices and things, general everyday parts of life, and working on them. A good example of that right now, the other day, well, actually, almost a week ago exactly, our dryer stopped heating. It still runs, but there's no heat. It's probably my fault. I've been trying to fix a problem we've had since we moved into this house, which is that the dryer vent was not meant to be a dryer vent, and it was poorly designed. And so I actually I used smaller venting pipe to make it work. Probably ended up causing a couple of fuses to blow in that dryer. So I tried to fix something, created another problem, which I'm now waiting on parts to solve. And I'm going to do it myself. I ordered some parts because there's probably someone who can work on a dryer around here, but I don't know who they are. And I don't have time for them to order parts and then get around to coming around and then work on it. I'm, maybe not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm smart enough to read a schematic and a diagram and figure out how to do things. And I just want to say to the world, so are you. Anybody out there who doesn't think that they are capable of doing things for themselves, of course you are. We all are. So my interests are pretty wide. They're varied. And so my YouTube subscriptions vary widely as well. So I talked about Townsend's already. On the polar opposite end of the spectrum, for guitar, one of my favorites is That Pedal Show. They're one of the biggest guitar-oriented channels on YouTube. They're big. Mick and Dan on That Pedal Show are awesome. If you're into guitar and you don't know about them, check them out. They're really great. If you're not into pedals, that's okay too. They're guitar players who happen to specialize in pedals. And I had some pedals when I was younger. I wasn't really into them that much. I had an original Rat pedal. I had an original, what was it? I think it was something like a Boss Chorus pedal. I had a few older original pedals from way back in the day. And I never really got into them, but now I've come back around to trying to explore pedals and use them in my music creation. So That Pedal Show, it's a big one. It's a good one to check out. There are a number of guitar channels that I'm a big fan of. Another one that's not huge but is pretty big and is getting bigger every day is Dylan Talks Tone. I ran into him on YouTube in the last year. He's a small creator. He's an independent businessman. He's an inventor, a builder of things. So check out Dylan Talks Tone. Another one that I really enjoy watching just because she's hilarious and extremely well informed is Carolina. I'm blanking on her last name. She's Polish. If not an actual fashion historian, an amateur fashion historian. My wife likes her a lot, and I started watching her videos because of her, and she's awesome. Talking about historical clothing, mainly 20th, 19th, 18th century. I wouldn't say she's an expert because I don't know her qualifications, but she sure does bring a lot of fun and hilarity to historical fashion commentary. Obviously, anyone who's into YouTube has the broad range of funny animal video channels. You don't need to know what my favorites are of those. They're everywhere. Another one that I watch every day just for a little bit of commentary on the modern world is Philip DeFranco. Now, I'm not aligned with Philip DeFranco, philosophically or politically necessarily, but he's an OG YouTuber. He's a couple years or a year or two younger than me, but got into YouTube from the get go and started out as just a vlogger who now has a media company that produces a news website and his videos on what's happening in the world. We can't always affect what's happening in the world ourselves on a real individual level. And so sometimes the news can be pretty troubling, disturbing, depressing, angering. But knowing that there are other people out there who also care about what's happening in the wider world around us is a big deal. So I watch Philip DeFranco to hear what people roughly my age, some younger, some older, I'm sure, are catching in the news cycle. I don't watch cable news. I did a lot 20 years ago when I was a lot younger and got sucked into the whole, got to know what's happening every moment of the day and have an opinion about everything kind of lifestyle that we have created in America now. And that's not worthwhile for normal people, everyday people. It doesn't give you anything that you need in your life. It doesn't foster critical thinking or wider understanding of the world or greater knowledge of anything. It just feeds emotion, and that's pretty awful. I mean, that's treating grown adults as if they were children, and a lot of grown adults lap it up as if it were mother's milk. So I avoid cable news nowadays. I avoid any media source that just wants to keep me listening or watching. That said, there's a lot of YouTube channels like that, and I get it. I mean, YouTube is big business now, but I try to avoid stuff like that. Going back to cooking, there's been a number of crossovers in the last year or so on YouTube that I love. I'm really happy that a lot of the channels that I love have so much cross-continuity that they've done crossovers together. And one of them that I love a lot is Tasting History with Max Miller. I think I discovered him a couple of years ago during 2020, the year of doom. And I'm really, really enjoying his videos. He goes back and finds historical recipes, even going back thousands of years. So it's intriguing to see how people lived at various points in human history. And Max Miller goes to great lengths to reveal history at a very consumable level for everybody, at least everybody English speaking. If you have the time to check, if you like cooking and you like food history, check out Max Miller, Tasting History with Max Miller. I know I love that particular subject of how food and various resources influence our history. One of my favorite books that my wife got me at publication, I mean, it must have been 15 years ago probably now, is A History of the World in 6 Glasses. That's a really good one. There's a lot of books along those lines now. Another one I have is Sacred Gifts and Profane Pleasures, about chocolate and tobacco. the history of those two particular consumables. So there's a million YouTube channels out there. Mine is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But I feel like helping people to find channels that are fulfilling is better than just browsing your brain away. I mean, sometimes you just want to wander into some whatever video that came out of nowhere, but sometimes you want to know specifically what to watch. Going back to my video last week about long rifles, there's a few. One of my favorites that has sadly gone dormant since a medical issue made that happen is, well, I forgot the name. The fellow's name is Bob, and he does muzzleloading videos, and he got about a year in and then faced a medical emergency. A Black Powder TV. That's it. Black Powder TV. What he has made, though, is high quality, well done by a veteran black powder shooter, someone who's been doing it a long time. And my other favorite one is a relatively new one that has now also had a crossover with Townsend's, which is awesome, which is I Love Muzzleloading. I Love Muzzleloading. Fellow's name is Ethan. He's, I believe, a little bit younger than me by a few years. But he's up in Indiana, where Townsend's is also located. And he's a young guy who's really, really into muzzleloading. Grew up with it, left it, came back to it, and now has a pretty good YouTube channel that's building up pretty strong. It's like a cross between a muzzleloading channel and ForgottenWeapons.com, which leads me on to ForgottenWeapons.com. Another favorite of mine. If you are into firearms history, you don't even have to own a gun, live in America, and be into guns in a personal way. Forgotten History is one of the biggest firearms channels on YouTube. And Ian McCullum goes to great lengths to make sure that his history is correct. And he demonstrates a lot of pretty amazing guns. Anyway, I've got a big old pot of beef and vegetable soup on the stove. Now that we're more than halfway through the Thanksgiving leftovers. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I have a lot of other channels I like. Can't get all of them in one video. At least not with me pontificating with my theories of existence. But check those channels out. Townsend's, Tasting History with Max Miller, I Love Muzzleloading, Black Powder TV, Philip DeFranco, Forgotten Weapons, That Pedal Show. There's a lot of others. Dylan Talks Tone. And we'll see you next time I find time to make a video. Hopefully me talking isn't too boring. Have a good one.